Hey everybody, it's Melanie coming to you from the Outer Banks, North Carolina. And if you're coming upon this link, you are interested in drawing mandalas. There's two ways to find this link on YouTube: via the search of how to draw a mandala, or by purchasing the mandala sketchbook and workbook that I've created with my friend Sophie, thanks to the inspiration from my friend Connie, who was a former student of mine. If you have found your way into learning about the art of mandalas, I am excited for you because it is something that has completely transformed my life. In this introductory video, I'm going to teach you how to draw a mandala based on a sacred geometry pattern of 6 petals. People all across the world, civilizations all across the world, have been drawing mandalas for thousands of years. Even before the time of technology, even before the time of communication and being able to talk to people or send mail via the post, people have been drawing and creating these images worldwide. And the reason is that sacred geometry exists within nature. If you slice an orange in half with the 2 ends, north and south poles, and pull it apart, you'll see a mandala pattern. If you slice an apple in half, you will see a 5-petal mandala pattern where the seeds exist. You'll cut the seeds right in half and you'll see a 5-petal mandala pattern. Kiwis, there's a mandala. Leaf systems and structures and the way flowers grow, those are all forms of sacred geometry and forms of mandalas created in nature. Now, when the human sits down with a piece of paper and a pencil or a pen, and you go into that flow state where you are drawing line for line, piece by piece, and step by step, and dot for dot, you go into a state of what's called conscious meditation. Your brain is switching from the right to the left hemisphere, back and forth again. And this creates a hypnotizing effect where you can sit in one place for hours at a time, and it feels as if 5 minutes has gone by. That conscious meditative state is so healing and so powerful for our brain, and has changed my life in ways that I can't even begin to tell you. So this video is a little bit short for all those ways. But if you want to go searching through my Instagram page, that's where I post the majority of my artwork and the majority of my journey. Naked Lady Mandalas, the name came to me after drawing these creations for about 3 months. I started in October of 2017. And my first mandala I drew from a YouTube video just like this one, how to draw a mandala. And from that point, I began to grow and change and evolve. About 3 months later, I came up with the name Naked Lady Mandalas because I bear my naked truth. I tell everybody everything. I share my stories so that others can learn from the lessons that I've learned and can grow themselves without maybe having to go through all of the darkness that I also went through. I'm a mom of 3 girls. I'm married. I have gone through separation and almost divorce with the husband that I'm still married to. My daughters are very close together in age. So within 2.5 years, we had 3 daughters. And that journey alone has been very difficult, but it was also coupled with bipolar disorder and drug addiction, IV drug addiction, through my job working as a nurse before I became a mandala artist and a mandala teacher. All of those damaging programs that I was living in were broken through by the process of mandalas. And yeah, so I want to share that with you guys. So I'm so happy that you're here. I hope that this video helps you guys get started on your mandala journey. If you flip through the sketchbook and the workbook, you will notice that there's many pieces of artwork prior to starting the sacred geometry designs. And that's if you want to color. Coloring in itself is also conscious meditation. And those images that I've provided within the book are also there to give you guys ideas and inspirations as to where you can put lines, where you can put designs. And also feel free to look at the worksheets that are within the workbook as well to give you ideas and inspiration. I hope that you guys find ideas and inspiration through the work that I've provided for you, but I also hope that you create and come up with your own designs and inspiration. If you start drawing mandalas and are having a wonderful time, please throw the hashtag Naked Lady Mandalas to let people know where you learned on your artwork, whether it's social media, YouTube, whatever. And share this message with folks to share their story as well too. So I hope you guys have a wonderful time during this video. I'm going to cut to the next portion, which will be starting with the 6-petal sacred geometry design, which you will find within the workbook. I don't know exactly what page it's on yet because it's not officially fully created yet, but you guys will know where it is because I will show you the image that we will be starting with. I hope to see you there. Peace, love, namaste. See you in a minute. Hey everybody, so welcome again to Naked Lady Mandalas introductory video on how to draw a mandala from sacred geometry. So this is our 6-petal sacred geometry format, and the one really exciting thing that I like to tell people is each one of these sacred geometry stencils is created in the same exact way. So I call this the skeleton of our mandala. And everybody will start with the same exact pattern, the same exact skeleton. But just like people, we all have the same skeleton, but they're so much different once you build the full human body. So once we build the full mandala body, you will notice the amazing differences that come from our unique and different designs and the way our brains work and all of that stuff. So I went and purchased this package of pens because I actually don't have any more. I gave them all away. And this package was purchased at Staples. You can get them off Amazon. You can get them, I think you can get Prismacolor at Walmart. I don't really like to support the big stores, but that's what we have here in our neighborhood. As you can see, these come with the fine tip point here, a chisel tip, and a brush tip. And they also come with 2 different colors. So it's hard to see because of the flash a little bit. But we have a 005 tip, which is going to be your smallest, finest tip. Then it goes to a 03, a 05, a 08, a chisel, a brush, and then the 005 and the brush tip for the brown taupe color. I don't know what color they call it. Sepia. They call it sepia. So with this package of pens, you will be able to complete a mandala. I usually have people start with the size 5, so we'll take that out. And then we will start from there. So our first step is going to be to go and trace over the initial 6 petals that are here. And you just want to trace over the pencil. For you guys, you're going to have actual black print within the workbook since we're not starting from an actual in-person class. And so just to get used to the way of drawing, maybe to get to the feel of how the lines work, I would recommend people still trace that 6-petal initial design, just to kind of get you guys started. And so once we go all the way around, you will be left with the blacked out for you guys. And so now we have the initial 6-petal design here. Hang on. So now we're left with this initial 6-petal design that you pretty much started with. And I wanted to show you guys, this was a little bit of a mess up, but if you're struggling and you feel like your lines are really wiggly and wavy and you're kind of like all over the place because you're not used to drawing, just know that this all comes with time and muscle memory and practice. But until you're able to get your hand a little bit more steady and until you're able to work the pen and the paper with better muscle memory, what you can do is you can cover up those wavy lines by making the shape a little bit more bold and drawing another line and kind of coloring in. And it ends up not being so shaky and not so wavy. Most of the lines that I draw in my artwork, I have drawn 2 to 3 times over the same line. So I'm going to put this on pause and I'm going to go over these lines and I'm going to draw on them one more time for you guys. All right, so we've gone in and we've created a bold effect, and I wanted to let you guys know that I used the 08 to go in and color these in a little bit darker. Now the next step is going to be add a border. So what I like to call a border is a line that follows the initial trajectory or the initial look of the original petal. I oftentimes like to add these thin borders to many of the petals that I create because it helps them to stand out. And the more design pattern that you put into your mandala, the more hypnotic and meditative the process becomes. And as you guys notice, this is not a fast process. This is a very slow process. So with the tortoise and the hare, slow and steady. Oop. So that one wiggled a little bit and made a different line that I wasn't expecting. So, see this mistake here? Perfect learning opportunity. I am going to put in whatever that design is that just happened. This is fun. So whatever you do to one petal, you're going to do to all the petals, even the mistakes. So when you have a mistake, don't look at it as a mistake. Look at it as the design needed to go in that direction. Allow that mistake to become part of the mandala and keep moving forward. So just like in life, we make mistakes. Things don't line up exactly as we originally wanted them to. What do? Do you stop, throw yourself on the ground and say, I can't do it, it sucks, ah! Or do we pick ourselves back up again? Do we keep moving forward no matter the obstacle, no matter the challenge, no matter the difficulty? We keep moving forward. And so something that became a mistake right there on that spot has now transpired into become something completely different and taken this mandala where I didn't think it would go. So we have this extra space in here. And what I oftentimes recommend is some kind of a shape. So today, I'm gonna kind of bring down a little bit of a funky triangle from the tip edge of this petal and bring it in between those two lines that I created. I also added a little bit of music, some meditation music. So I hope you all are enjoying that. So now that we've gotten to that part, I'm going to throw in another line. So this would be whatever you draw, just add a border, add another border to it. Whatever shape you draw, whatever design you draw, just keep adding borders, keep adding shapes and pieces to fill in the space. That's kind of also what we do with life, that we just keep adding pieces to our lives to fill in the empty spaces. Always with the intention of moving forward. So there, that's taken it on a new path, hasn't it? So this would be a great time to show you guys what it might look like to use the very fine, trying to 005 tip. So if you go into these little spaces, you can play with the patterns within the patterns. Adding texture, adding depth, and adding movement, all by adding itty bitty little lines. When I first started doing this process, I was a perfectionist. I was somebody that couldn't bear to make mistakes within my daily life. I was somebody that beat myself up for the mistakes that I made within my daily life. And I was somebody that also expected perfectionism from the people that surrounded me. And when I didn't get that from them, I lost my SHIT, as one would say. And it completely threw me off course, especially when I couldn't let go of that perfectionism. When I first started drawing mandalas, I was so stuck in that state of perfectionism that a good friend would often sit and talk to me via FaceTime. There's a huckleberry hair, as always. And encourage me kindly to move forward, even through the difficulties and even through feeling like my work wasn't good enough. He would sit there and tell me it was okay and that it was going to be okay. I'm going to throw a dot in here because dots are fun. And these are called descending dots that I like to do, where the dot starts big and get smaller and smaller in size. But he would tell me that the mistakes I was making in all reality weren't as big as I thought that they were. And that the only way to keep going forward was to keep going forward and not allow a couple of mistakes or one little line to stop me from getting to the end of my journey or to the end of the mandala. And it ended up becoming some of the best advice I've ever received, and absolutely what's helped me continue on my journey, even through the darkness, even through the difficulties, accepting the mistakes for what they are and incorporating them into our lives. From this point that we are at now, I'm going to have everybody, I'm stuck in my sweater. I'm going to have everybody draw a petal out to this point. And that's that first circle right here. We're not going to trace any circles because we cannot trace circles. We are not perfect. We are not compasses. We are imperfect humans. I'm also noticing through the camera lens that this one's a little bit thin, so I'm going to thicken it up. But we are imperfect humans, and so we're going to embrace our imperfections, and we are not going to attempt to freehand draw any circles. We are also always going to work out from the center outwards. If it feels better for you to work out and then go inwards, that's okay. But for most people, the best way to work through the mandala is to work from the center and work your way out. So at this point, we are going to put a petal that goes out here, and I'm going to do something different from what we already have done. Now, I've given you guys in the worksheets different mandala or different petal designs that you can use, and you can use any of those petal designs where they're more of a rounded petal, or you can do a very thin petal that comes out the middle. There's many different options, but for me today, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to always add a border. So what you do to one space, we're going to repeat and do to the next space to the best of our ability. And if it's not perfect, that's okay. We're going to embrace that imperfection and we're going to keep going. Sometimes I change a little bit the size of the petal, but I try to keep them all about the same. One of the reasons why I also do not like working in pencil and I prefer to work in pen is because the mistakes we make in life are not erasable. Therefore, the mistakes we make in mandalas shouldn't be either. And where we are at in our lives right now is all because of the mistakes that we've made in the past, and we wouldn't be who we are today without those mistakes. So we got to embrace the mistakes. That's the whole point of mandalas, embrace your mistakes. All right, so from this point, we're going to add some kind of other petal within this petal that we've created, and I'm going to do like a backwards weird triangle just because I can. I don't know why it's a backwards weird triangle, but it's a slopey triangle. How's that? And we're going to swoosh it all the way to the top there. And we're going to swoosh. And we're going to swoosh. So from this point, we're going to add a border. Yay! And I'm going to just stick it right up in there. All right, so then we've got this pattern here. I'm then going to do one more border here, and I'm going to color in this part of it. This is almost very similar to what I did at the tips of the first initial 6 petals. And to me, it's so interesting that you can use the same lines, the same designs, the same concepts over and over again and get something completely different and completely unique just by changing one little piece to it each and every time. The possibilities of mandalas are endless, infinite, just like we are. We are endless and we are infinite. It's beautiful. It's already looking so fantastic. So something else that we can do to give a little more texture and a little more depth to these inside pieces is I'm going to start working with probably the 3 tip here. So there's the 0, 3. I'm going to do these little flamey things. I always like the design that it gives. And so while I'm doing these intricate little patterns, I'll put the video on pause. And we will start again in a moment. And so now I'm finishing up the last petal here with these little, I call them upside down flamey things. They could be U's if you want to look at them like they're U's, or they're the letter M, or I don't know, whatever it looks like to you. But I'm also coloring in the little triangle that it creates on the edge. This gives those inside petals a little bit more movement and depth to them. So now I'm going to switch back to the 0, 5, which is right here. And now this is the fun part. So we are going to now draw the circle, but instead of thinking about drawing the circle as one big circle, we're going to break it down into pieces, into steps. And so we're going to draw this step here, and that's all we're going to focus on first. We're going to turn it, we're going to draw this step. And so you're just going tip to tip, releasing the thought of completing a giant circle and just thinking about completing this one little edge. And when we break down the problems in our life and the difficulties in our life to little pieces and to little steps, they're much more manageable. So the issue of having to draw a perfect circle was impossible to begin with. But when we broke it up into little pieces, it became possible. As you will see in just a moment, we just keep going. Following the curve of the predetermined line. And so on the book, again, you guys are going to already have these lines blackened, but I encourage you to trace them and get used to tracing, because eventually you're going to be drawing your own circles and your own patterns. And you're not going to be able to just live off of what's created in the book. From this point, our next step is going to be to fill in this border pattern with something. Now, we can do a series of vertical lines where they just are up and down like this. We could do more of that flamey pattern, and we can draw all the way up. We could do bubbles that go all the way up to the top line. We could do round bubbles that are big that go up to the top line. There's so many different options. Today, because we have these 2 lines, this is the time that you can mess with the various pattern options of like drawing squares or drawing the lines, because you have the second circle to draw out to gauge how far you want to create the pattern. Whereas this outside circle, you don't have a second line to show you how wide it should be. So you can pretty much do whatever you want around the outside. But on this inside circle, we're going to do a little bit of a pattern. So I'm going to do a triangle like this. And then I'm going to do 2 dots on either side like this. And then I'm going to do a series of 3 lines. I'm also going to trace that section there as the upside down triangle, like this. And let's see, we're going to do 4 lines. Maybe we'll just do lines all the way to the edge. And as you can see, I don't really know what I'm doing or how it's going to look or how it's going to work, but I'm trying. And then we'll finish off that portion there like that. So we'll do the same pattern again, and you can pick whatever pattern you want, whatever design you want to do. And I can give you examples too. I normally have in my classes a design that's already created that I can then give people examples from. But this would be the little bubble petals. You could do like that go around. You could do the wider bubble pattern that goes around. You could do the flamey thing that goes around like this and color in your flames. I don't have names for all these, and I don't think they need names. They're just shapes, patterns, lines, designs, all that jazz. And the other option would be just straight vertical lines all the way around. You could do a series of triangles all the way around with various shapes on the inside. Whatever floats your boat. But we're going to continue with what we have already started. And I'll do one more for you guys so that you can see. We've got 2 dots on either side. Gonna trace that portion, add our mini triangle on the inside, and then we're gonna do our lines all the way to the edge. Yep. There's that. I'm gonna continue that line. My hand is super shaky. Continue that line there. And so again, I'm gonna put you guys on pause and I'll finish this pattern while you guys are working on your pattern. So now I'm completed with this border, but one thing I did off camera that I started doing was I colored in these little spaces here right next to the inverted triangles that were created by the psychogeometry stencil pattern. So I just decided to color these in, and I'd done the rest while I was off camera. So this is our completed center now. If you wanted to, you could keep putting in designs in these spaces. For now, I'm gonna leave them open and maybe come back to them in a little bit. One thing I'm actually seeing right now is that I'm gonna put in some flames on these guys like this. And they won't take very long, but they will definitely change a little bit of the dynamic in the center here. And it's so interesting to me how something so simple can change the look of a piece so quickly. If you're finding something within your mandala, and your mandala should not look exactly like my mandala. Your mandala should look completely different than my mandala because you are a completely different person creating this mandala. And I teach everybody the exact same way in every single class with the exact same verbiage, yet everybody understands and interprets that instruction differently. And that's why the mandalas come out so different and so unique based on the creator of the mandala. So I want your mandala to look the way your higher self wants your mandala to look. So if it does not look the same, that is a good thing. It would be interesting to teach this class to twins, especially identical twins. And I know a pair, so I might as well teach the 2 of them how to do this and see what they come up with their different brains and their different minds. So voila, we have now created this. So from this point, we are then going to go and trace the line for these 6 larger outer petals. I'm also going to switch to the 8 size, which is the wider tip, so that we don't have to work so hard to fill in or make it bolder. It comes a little bit easier. So we just go around and you're gonna trace the lines in your workbook because they're not very wide either. They're pretty thin lines. That way you could keep their thinness or you could make them a bolder effect. It's up to you. I still want you to do the practice. I still want you to learn to follow these curves. One thing you also want to be careful of while creating any type of artwork is where you have drawn and what is still wet on the page, as you don't drag your hand or your arm through it. I oftentimes have smudges of paint all over my arms and my hands from making mistakes and smudging through my paint. But when we practice awareness and mindfulness about where our body is, we're less likely to have mistakes within our piece that we have to go and fix. We are almost done with this piece. So, if you want to go around, you can pause the video and go around and make these a little bit bolder if you would like to. Since I did that on the center, I'm going to leave these ones a little bit thinner on the outside. That's okay, it just is what it is. So the next step is going to be, as always, add a border. So what are we going to do? We're going to add a border. Now, since I haven't done all of these, but I can incorporate this for teaching purposes into the other ones, I will show you what a wider border would look like. So like, hey, we're going to connect those two lines like that. But since I want to keep mine the same and go all the way around with that thinner border, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to add that. This would be the second part of the petal. So I'll add this part of the petal as well onto all of the initial petals so that they're all the same, they're all symmetrical. Let me just go. I feel like one day I might be the Bob Ross of mandalas, who knows? He's been a big inspiration on my painting journey, and I listened to him a lot when I was initially painting these because the calmness of his voice, his positive outlook on life, his positive outlook on mistakes and happy little accidents, and how the expectations were really low for the person on the other side of the screen watching, just to be at peace while they were creating beauty. I took a lot from Bob Ross and his videos that are forever archived in the land of time of YouTube. Woo! All right, so here we have one border, we have a different border if you wanted something wider. Now that we have this space here, this thinner space, we can actually put a pattern within this space and it will pop out instead of being pulled back into the mandala because you have that extra border and that extra hint of white around it. So I'm feeling like in this space, we could do something really fun. We could go and maybe do these like wonky snake-like lines. And we'll finish it off over there, why not? So, go to the other side. And so if you haven't ever drawn like this before, it may be hard for you to transition and draw both directions. It's very hard for me, even somebody 3 to 4 years into this, was it 3 years? Into this process for me to go and I can do the swirly snake on this side without a problem. My hand moves freely. On this side, I am much slower and it's much harder for my brain to control where it's going on that side. So if you notice that happening, know that that's normal. That's you strengthening the muscles of one side of your brain that you don't always use. And that will also ease up and get easier as the time goes by and the more you practice. It definitely takes time to train your brain to go both directions with ease and grace. Ooh. But we keep moving forward, even if it's a little bit difficult, we keep going forward. So these are a little bit wonky up in here. I don't really care. The way that I could fix that would just to be do this. And this is how I fix all of my pieces that aren't looking exactly the way that I want them, is I just kind of color in what I can. I also want to encourage you guys not to get super frustrated and then black out. Like, oh, I didn't like these lines, I'm just going to color this all in. No, continue to try and work with it. That's something that a lot of children struggle with, is that they make a mistake and they just want to cover it up. I'm urging all the people watching this video, don't do that. You can't erase the mistakes of mandalas and you can't erase the mistakes of your life. You just have to keep moving forward, no matter how difficult and painful it may be, to keep looking at that mistake and knowing that you created that mistake. Keep moving forward. It will get better. Figure out the best way to incorporate it into your life. So, doesn't look perfect. Don't really care. What else can we do to those little patterns? Well, we could add a second bubble inside. And you'll see that that changes the dynamic of these little bubbles. I feel like if mandalas are used correctly, which I don't think there's an incorrect way to even use them, eventually it would change the world if everybody did these. It brings you into such a centered place of peace and love and connection to the divine. So yeah, that looks fun, right? So our next step would be to do something within this space. And since we have taken the border that we were given, and you know what? I'm going to pause it and I'm going to even add a little bit more. I'll be right back. So what I just did that actually like really dramatically changed that pattern that we created is I filled in little dark bubbles around the outside. And this gives it a very different feel and look, and I like it. So now we're going to keep going. So this next step, and if you notice that your little lines are coming across, which that one was the only one that did it, you can always just go over that line again to any lines that like cross over. It'll help them hide. It'll help you hide those lines behind a bolder line. So now we're going to add another border to the petal that we created before our wavy little line stuff. And again, this will help this pop out. Bring it to the surface. And go around. All right. And so then something that I like to do is add these V shapes to my artwork. And for the sake of time, I'm going to do both of them because you when in doubt, add a border. It's really the like rule of life when it comes to mandalas. When in doubt, add a border. Always add a border. Okay, so we went all the way around that way. How about we add some descending dots? You could add a diamond into that shape. You could do what we did here, where we just added another V and colored it in. That's always pretty. All right, so we've got all our little dots completed. Here we are with our 6 petals. Now, since you guys, and maybe this is something, just deciding on whether or not to talk about it today. I don't think this is the best time to talk about it, so we're not going to. I will do a separate video on layering techniques. I'm going to go over that a little bit more. So here, it would be fun if we add a little half circle. I don't know what to call it. Stick something in here that's a little bit different than all of the lines we've got going on. Little buddies. What are we gonna do next? We're gonna add a border. Get excited. Lots of borders happening. Woo! This video is being created on January 7th, 2021. The idea for this book I envisioned last January, right about this time, and almost pushed hard for it to happen, and then stepped back and let it all go and said that it would happen when it was meant to. And everybody came into my life that was meant to take me on the journey and help me along that I needed, and including my graphic designer best friend now. So it's all working out the way that it's meant to. So here I think it would be fun to put in some bands of shadow, I guess. I don't know. Why not? I'm gonna go this way. And I'm gonna put you on pause while So I just completed these little sunburst designs, I guess you would call, in this space. And we're gonna add some bubbles to the outside here. And I'm gonna switch down, I'm still on the 8 tip, so I'm gonna switch down to the 5. A little bit thinner of a line, less bold, I guess. Bubble, 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 bubble. And I'll put this on pause. All right, so we just finished these little bubble guys. I'm gonna go back to the 8. And so we have this space here, this crescent moon shape almost. And so you have the choice of leaving that blank, and you can draw your next petal up to this space here, or you can draw up to that edge of the crescent moon shape out here. And that's what I'm gonna do today. And I'm gonna show you how to layer something behind it. So we're gonna follow the tip all the way out and put a dot. And that's gonna help us know where to start our petal. You can draw convex or concave shape of a petal leaf. I give you guys lots of examples in the worksheet section. Choose which petal feels good to you. Don't do what I just do. Do what your higher self's telling you to do. If it makes you feel more comfortable to try and replicate what I'm doing, that's great. But eventually, you're going to have to step out on your own and take little steps and make decisions all by yourself. And that's okay. Just embrace the process. Embrace all those mistakes that you're inevitably going to make because we are imperfect humans. And enjoy the ride, guys. So we've done this, right? Now, one thing I like to tell people is, and this is rules in my class and rules in life, you don't ever erase the lines that are drawn on the page. Fun little story, my husband used to be the one to use the compass and draw my circles for me because it made me crazy and it would make me cry, and I wasn't capable of doing it very well and easily. And so any lines that he drew for me, I felt guilty and wronged to erase them because he took his time out of his day to draw those lines for me. So I always tell people to leave the lines that are on your page and figure out how to make them disappear within the mandala. So today, to make these guys disappear, we're gonna do little flowers that exist within the flower, right? And so we're going to color in those spots. And so that line doesn't go all the way away. So guess what we're going to do? And I'm going to switch to the smaller tip. Doop, doop. Now, something I also instruct my students to not do is to fill in all of the one petal that they're working on and move to the next one. Because when you do that, you forget bits and pieces that needed to be there. I'm also going to throw in a whole bunch of little lines. Go all the way up and around, and that's also going to make those lines disappear from that space. So that, my friends, is how we make the sacred geometry line design disappear without erasing. I'm going to work on the rest of those petals. You guys work on yours, and we'll meet back in just a moment. So as I finish up these last petals, I'm just doing this exterior border here. One thing that I did not mention is that it's much easier, and I think I started to touch on it, but it's much easier to go around step by step and do the second border all the way around, then to do these little bubbles all the way around, and then to do these inner petals all the way around, then to do the inner petals of those pieces all the way around, then to do your border edge all the way around. And if you do it in that systematic approach, you are less likely to forget the details. If we try and complete a full petal, and complete this whole petal, then go to this one, complete this whole petal, go to this one, complete this whole petal. From experience and from the mistakes that I've made in the past, I always make mistakes if I try and do it that way because I forget very important pieces, like maybe adding this outer border or adding the inner border to these guys and not drawing the petals correctly. So it's important to go step by step, work your way all the way around for each and every piece of the mandala, instead of trying to complete one section at a time. That's okay. Just keep going. Nobody will notice. That's what I have to tell myself. I'm sorry that this camera is shaking a little bit every time I hit the table. I'm a little bit firm-handed maybe, and it jostles the tripod a little bit, but that's okay. You guys will survive. We'll all survive. If you were not aware, I have been technology phobic for the years that I've been doing this, and I've been trying with older technology to make it happen, and finally jumped in and got this brand new fancy phone with all of these videography features to it. But it was a big jump for me, and to do anything technology based has been a big jump for me just because I don't really resonate with it, and that's okay. But here we are drawing mandalas on the intranets and sharing it across the world, which is really cool too. So now we're on to our next step. And remember, we're never going to try and draw a complete circle. We're just going to draw the pieces of the circle. So we are going to trace the line here of this crescent moon piece all the way around. We could have added another border to the petal that we drew in the middle, but today we're just going to keep going. If you want to draw that extra border, you can. I really want to encourage anybody watching this video not to be doing it just like me, but to be thinking up different ideas and listening to your intuition. So like you'll hear these little voices like, put a triangle there. So stick a triangle in that spot. There's reasons for what you're hearing. And I truly believe this might be out there for a lot of you guys, but there's a thing called light language that is interpreted by everybody's subconscious, whether you want to or not. And it's very powerful and it's very healing. I believe that mandalas become a source and a form of light language for folks to provide healing to those looking at it as well as to those that are creating it. And so my higher self is guiding me along on this journey as to what to put where to help evolve and unlock different key codes in my brain, as well as for the people that will one day look upon this mandala and see the light language as well. These shapes and designs are so sacred and come from a place that is not human. They come from a place of the universe. So here we are with our traced crescent moons behind here. And so what I want to do is add a border, because that's what I always do. I've got the 8 tip here, so I'm going to follow this edge. And I think I'm going to do my border like this. I'm going to follow this edge and have it meet the inner edge of the crescent moon all the way around. Bloop. If you see something else different, please, by all means, do what feels good for you. There's people honking outside, so if you hear that, I apologize. Working with a little bit of a microphone today off a pair of headphones. Do with what we've got, right? So we have done that around. Now we are going to add a pattern inside the space here. Whatever pattern we're going to choose, I want it to layer behind, underneath these big petals here. So it needs to be something that goes behind. So I'm just going to go for it. And I'm really kind of enjoying doing the stuff like this down here. So I'm going to carry that out all the way out here, and it's going to be much bigger, obviously. I picked the wrong one. I picked the 005 instead of the 05. Here's the 05. Can't get it to focus, but that's okay. There we go. When there's repeating patterns that pull from different parts of the mandala, it can create an even more hypnotic effect. See, this pattern's not too busy either. It will fall perfectly behind what we've already created. And so it would go there and it'd come up here. And did you see how I pretended like I was drawing on top of the petal, but then I hit the paper after I got to the other side of the petal? That's the best way to get your stuff to line up on either side. So there's that. I might even do something else. And remember, you're not supposed to do it this way, but I'm just giving you guys the ideas, and then I'm going to go and complete it all the way around. But I feel like it would be fun to put like a little mini triangle in the opposite way. Maybe a dot at the top. And I made that triangle a little bit long, so I'll try and remember to keep it shorter so that we can fit that dot. And I like to make noise effects. I don't know why, but it makes me happy. And takes the pressure off, maybe. It's not so serious. Well, that looks very nice. I finished it off by sticking a line that goes all the way straight down. It's all about the different textures. Maybe a different day I would have colored that in. Who knows? Today, that's what I'm going to do. Bloop. Now it has gone behind that exterior petal. And if that exterior petal feels like it's fallen a little bit, like you can't see it as well, it's not standing out very much, just go and bolden the edges a little bit and it'll be fine. It's a definite balance to how much detail, but the more detail, like I said, the more hypnotic. So I'm going to complete the rest of these and I'll catch up with you guys in just a few minutes. We are almost done. Get excited. So look at that, guys. Look how far we've gone. Look how far we've come. It's super exciting. So the next step, and I can't remember since I don't have the book with me, it's not officially created all the way yet, but from this point, I cannot remember if we put the extra circle around the outer edge. I know that in some of the circles down the line from the basic beginner circle has this, so I guess we'll work with this just to show you guys where to go from here. I oftentimes in my class suggest to people to add another petal in this space, and that way when you're trying to go around that outer edge and connect the dots, it's a little bit easier because you've got an extra one to add to. So at this point, I'm going to take the number 8, and I am going to put a dot for my center part of the petal, and it's going to be something that comes way out. It's going to be like a super wide petal. I'm going to go all the way around and do that. Do your best to try to make the petals all about the same size, but if you don't, that's okay. I'm just going to keep going. And what are we going to do once we've done this step? I say it with a smile. We're going to add a border. So I'm going to go back to the 5 for this journey. I've been in such resistance to actually doing these videos because I wanted to teach in person. I didn't want to teach over the internet. I wanted to teach in person, and it was important to me for human contact. With the state of where we are at as a world collective right now, the universe is pushing me in this direction past my resistance, and so here I am. One thing I am going to do is I'm going to also come out from the initial petals, and I'm going to draw those out all the way, not the initial petals, but these outer petals. I'm going to draw them all the way out to that outer circle to give us yet another point to draw to when completing that outer edge. And this will make it easier in the long run for you. That one I had already darkened the edges on the other part of the video, but we'll do to all the others what we did to the one, and that's one of the themes. Whatever you do to one, you do all the way around to continue that symmetry. La la la. Don't be alarmed if this process takes you a couple hours. My classes normally range 2 to 3 hours in length. We are pausing as we go through this, so it's obviously going to be a longer period of time for you as you're drawing. The longer, the better. The longer that you are spending your time drawing mandalas, the more healing that is happening from your brain. So embrace the patience and the process. So now that we have these little guys out here, you got to stick something in there. What do we want to stick in there? How about we'll do these little circles. We'll call them mini snowmen. 2-ball snowmen. It's fun what shapes and it's fun what shapes you come up with when drawing these, and then to see and hear what other people see or hear in your designs. And I'll share something with you. Well, I guess I won't share something with you because I want these books to be appropriate for children as well. But if you ever see me in person and you don't already know, ask me what my mandalas always tend to resemble, because I spent 8 years of my life in a career of high-risk obstetrics, which is labor and delivery and postpartum after the baby's born. I did low risk to high risk, majority of my time spent in high risk. And so with that, you see a lot of female body parts. So that's what resonates with my stuff, I guess. Now I'm going to maybe put in a little swirly. And I'm also going to change to the 3-tip because my little swirly, this is often hard for people, is the swirls, because it makes your brain work both directions to make that line go. So if you struggle with swirlies, just keep practicing. If you're struggling with this at all, by all means, hop on Instagram, send me a message. I will always help you move forward. It might not be that day that I get right back to you, but generally within 24 hours, I'll get back to you. My Facebook is a mess when it comes to Naked Lady Mandalas on Facebook. So the best way to get in touch with me is definitely Instagram or YouTube. If you're struggling on YouTube, hit me up in the comments. Or if you're struggling and want to send me an email and a picture of what you're working on, I will get back to you. So have faith that I do exist and I want to help people on their mandala journey. So now I need to fill in something within that little border area, and just for, we will do larger bands. So I'm going to keep with the 3. And so we've done like really short little lines, but now we're going to do these thicker, bolder line designs and see where that takes us. And it's really funny. Most of the time as I'm doing my mandalas, I hate them. I hate how they look in the beginning. I think they look silly and ugly. And then by the time I'm about 3/4 of the way through, I'm like, whoa, they look really cool, way cooler than I thought it could be. So just have faith and trust in the process and finish. I had this beautiful 13-year-old girl working with me at a classroom setup. And she was in tears. And I saw myself in her. I saw the suffering she was going through just trying to get through a drawing. And I knew how much pain she had inside by what was being expressed on the outside, because I'd felt that too. I'd been there before. And I understood her place of perfectionism and what she was trying to achieve. And I just kept encouraging her and saying, you can do this. You can get through this. I promise once you get to the end, you will be so proud of yourself for making it to the end. And she was so proud of herself that she laminated that mandala and she showed it to everybody, and she couldn't wait to show it to me. And so much healing had taken place in that classroom and in those steps of pushing past the insecurity, pushing past the sensitivity, pushing past the doubt and the difficulties, and getting to the end and seeing what you are capable of creating, even in the face of such adversity that your mind creates. So I urge you to keep going, no matter the cost, no matter what's happening, just keep going. And you can see as I'm doing this, my lines aren't perfect. Nothing on this design is perfect, and there's imperfections and there's mistakes. But once you keep going and you get all the way to the outside, those mistakes dissolve and disappear into the crazy randomness of the design itself. There we go. So we have finished the initial portion of this. We are almost to an hour. Now the last step is going to be to do something with this outer line. And since I talked about earlier these little bubbles and these little choices, I'm going to stick 2 of these together and show you how that works to create the final part of the mandala. So if we wanted to, we could go and trace this line piece by piece all the way around and be done. just so I can give you guys a little bit more stuff in this video to get you going on your journey. I'm going to show you what it looks like to do these thinner bubbles all the way around. And so I'm drawing each one, hoping to keep it the same, always kind of keeping a perspective as to what I started with, because it'll change if you don't pay attention to that. You'll get bigger, smaller, larger, thinner, fatter if you're not consciously aware and paying attention to the size of the bubbles that you're creating. Just making a whole bunch of M's here for Melanie Mandalas, you know. So I guess I'm going to pause this so that, for the sake of time, but we'll be back in just a moment. And so here we are finishing up the last part, and you just kind of fit them back together like that. Now, what we can do is we can connect these dots, or these lines, all these lines together, or you could go in and place a dot on each one of the sections of line, making that pencil disappear, but also creating a space that's not closed, I guess. I feel like the actual drawing of the circle would close it. It leaves it a little bit more open and flowy. For today, I am going to just draw the line, but if you guys wanted to do the dots, that's okay too. It just gives it a different look and a different feel. So I'm going to close this space off by creating a definitive border. Sometimes I will put upside down hanging triangles in those spaces, and it almost looks like icicles hanging down. And I also encourage people to draw their border on top of the pencil and then connect the lines later, because it makes it so much easier. Oop, there's something on the table underneath. There it goes. That line changed because of a crumb of something. It makes it so much easier to get that perfect circle because you're just drawing little line to little line instead of big line to big line. Yay! We're so close! Ah! There's that humor coming out for y'all again. Whoa. So Miss Mel even gets some spazzy lines going on. That's okay. All right. Jesus. Stop it. So there we go. I've got that closed border. And then you could put lines inside of these little guys. You could put little dots inside of those little guys. Something I did want to show you before we went too far is how to almost fill in this space here, these empty spaces, and you could add a whole nother petal in there and go from there. But there's something that I like to do, and I think I'm going to do it probably in this space. So these are my quick fill-ins. They almost look like little bugs to me, like poking out. But I draw this tiny little black or open petal. Sometimes I leave them open. And then I draw the wispies around them randomly. And this changes a lot of things just by adding this. It gives it a little more depth, flow, and texture, just like most of the lines that we add and draw and design. And it fills the space in much quicker than if we were to add another series of petals or dots. Now, one thing I did forget to show you guys is that you can add bubbles around other petals as well. You don't have to reserve it for borders. So while you're working your designs, feel free to add bubbles and petals and flames around your larger or even smaller petals. There we go. See how different that is just by adding our little creepy bugs that are like, hey! All right, so from this point, I'm going to show you how to stack a border. I am going to add something just to, because I'm going to add these little lines inside. They're too open for me. So I'll put it on pause while I'm doing that. So now we're finishing up the little lines around the outside. And kind of piecing together any little last mistakes that we're noticing. So now what I'm going to do is show you how to stack a border, like put one border on top of another. And so we're going to use what we just did plus these larger bubbles. You can connect 2 bubbles. I like to usually do 3. And I'll show you what happens if they don't match up. Again, you want to try and keep these about the same size as the ones before it and just kind of pay attention to how they're laying and how big you're getting, or if you're staying the same size. Always go back to the first one to make sure that you're trying to keep them very much the same. We're going to do a little trick in case that they're not, just to show you how it keeps going and how to hide the imperfections and the differences. And you can tell that mine aren't always exact, but you just keep going. Bubble time. We're getting there. All right, I'm going to stick you guys on pause. All right, so we're almost all the way around. And this is the last one. So this is 4 bubbles instead of 3. What we can do is, if you want it to be exact, you would then do the 3 bubbles and we'll continue on, and I guess that's the choice I'm gonna do. If it was me drawing this mandala and I didn't want the extra work, I would just throw those 4 together and make 1. But I'm gonna show you guys what you can do. So now we've got this extra little guy here. We are going to then continue our mandala journey in groups of 3. And it's gonna make it look like a doily. And I'll stick you guys on pause so you can see how it turns out in the end. And so we're coming up on the end and final pieces of our mandala. And just like that, we have completed a mandala. Beautiful for anybody to look at and appreciate. And there's some extra places that if you felt like you wanted to stick some things, you could put some extra stuff in here. I'm going to leave it the way it is because I think this is gorgeous. And so what I always tell my students is you sign and date. So that people know that it's completed. And there you have it, my friends. This is how we draw a mandala. So I am so glad you checked in with me today. I'm so glad you stuck around. I'm so glad that if you purchased the book and the workbook and the sketchbook, that you really enjoy it. And again, if you have any questions, do not hesitate to contact me through Instagram via direct message, through email, nakedladymandalas@gmail.com, through YouTube, via the comments, and last but not least through Facebook. But Facebook takes me about a week to respond. So by all means, hit me up if you have any questions, comments, concerns, details that you need help working through. I really appreciate having you guys with me on this journey. I wish that we could be together in person, but alas, we can't right now. So enjoy your mandala journey. I will also be posting in the coming weeks a video as to how to create the sacred mandala, sacred geometry circles and designs and stencils to start with. But until then, you guys can work with what's already in your workbook. So I am wishing you all a beautiful day. I'm wishing you all a beautiful year for 2021. And remember, what we put out into the universe is what comes back to us from the universe. So find peace, love, kindness in your heart, project it out to others, and that is what will come back to you. So much love, so much kindness, so much peace, so much namaste for all of you. Have a great and wonderful 2021, and I see you all again soon. Much love. Bye.